Hi, my name is Marco, and I want to tell you my recovery story. I'll be brief. First of all, October is the hardest month of the year for me. It brings up a lot of memories and emotions, a lot of negative things, some positive things, but really hard to balance how I feel this month. October makes me look back to when I was small. And I had good parents, but they both had really severe issues. My mother committed suicide, died when I was young. My father abandoned me. He was an alcoholic. I lived with my uncle, and he was a really strict man, and we didn't have any communication. He spoke only Spanish. He spoke no English. And I used American Sign Language. I mean, not even really. I had just started learning to sign, and so my uncle and I could not communicate. That meant he was angry and frustrated with me a lot, and he hurt and abused me because of that. All those things from my childhood have affected me as an adult. My childhood was not happy. I was in trouble constantly at school, always in trouble. I behaved well at home because I was afraid of my uncle and how strict he was. When I got to be about 15, my sister and I were talking, and she was really surprised to realize that I was smart. I wasn't very good at reading and writing. And I was always sort of conning people to believe that I had finished my homework. Sometimes I would read the newspaper, or I would pick up stories off of television, and I would sort of pass that off as keeping up with my education. Eventually they found out that I was really far behind at school, and I ended up transferring to the American School for the Deaf. When I visited there, I was really shocked to find that everybody used American Sign Language. The teachers signed, the principal signed, the guidance counselor signed, and all the kids signed. I was using signed English, and the people that I met were using fluent American Sign Language. When I got there, I was able to play sports. I made a bunch of friends. I played soccer, basketball, I ran track. I didn't ever know it, but I had skills as an athlete. I was kind of a natural. I finally graduated from high school, and I started to feel depressed. American School for the Deaf had become my family. Once I graduated, I went back to a world of communication barriers. I became addicted to drugs. I started drinking heavily. I really struggled with my drug use, and I wasn't really sure why, but I began to realize it had to do with the things that had happened to me as a child, and the stress of graduating and having to leave the School for the Deaf kind of brought all of that trauma back. I got very heavily into the use of heroin. And when I was not doing well, I tried to kill myself. Luckily, I didn't succeed. I'm still alive. I wanted to stop using drugs, but I just struggled how to really stop, how to become sober. Though I tried detox, I tried rehab. I didn't know about a lot of the programs that were available, and if I had known at the time, maybe I would never have attempted suicide. I tried a lot of different rehab programs in Massachusetts and Connecticut, different kinds of programs. None of them worked for me, and it was because there was no communication access. People were speaking English, and there wasn't always a sign language interpreter available. I might wait all day for an interpreter to come to a single group or a single AA meeting. Then I would learn for that brief period of time, and the rest of the day and night, I was faced with a communication barrier. So as a result, I constantly relapsed. I wasn't sure what the point of living was. I thought I wasn't successful. I was constantly struggling in life. I didn't want to continue to use drugs. I didn't have any hope. What was the point of being alive? But in the back of my mind, I think I did keep like that last shred of hope. I tried over and over again. I didn't give up. I continued to try rehab programs. And the thing that finally helped me, when there was an interpreter available at that moment, I would learn something and I would store that away. And then I would relapse and I would go to a different program and I would take a few bits of information from that program when the interpreters were available. And so over the course of all of those treatments, I began to kind of build recovery for myself. I stayed in the Worcester State Hospital, which had a deaf unit and signing staff, had a psychiatrist, a psychologist, who could sign. And I learned a lot when I was on that unit because I was able to communicate. When I left the hospital, we talked about what agency was best for me. I didn't even know what that meant. So I picked Advocates. And when I started receiving supports from Advocates, I was really impressed that the staff, the clinicians, used American Sign Language. They had interpreters on staff. They understood my struggles and my addiction. I started to think about what to do in the community. Maybe play baseball, maybe play basketball. But the staff didn't always show me respect. They treated me like a client. I said, it's not my fault that I'm here in a group home. I want help. And got really angry that people looked down on me and didn't treat me with respect and didn't let me go and try the things I wanted to try. Looking back, I went back to my former feelings of what is the point of life? I had to convince myself again to continue to try and struggle and to find hope. My recovery started with a job. I was working in a human service field at another agency. And as I went along in that job, I moved into my own apartment out of the group home. I was doing well. I was doing better.
What does life look like for you now?
Work was going really well, and Keith Scott talked to Evelyn Cunningham, who was the director of deaf services at Advocates, the clinical director, Evelyn, who was just a really talented clinician and someone with experience in recovery herself. She and I had a good relationship. And she spent a lot of time talking to people about how much I had improved, how I had been sober for 2 years, which was the longest stint that I had ever been sober in my life. I had never been sober for 2 years before in my life. So Keith Scott had been hearing about me from the deaf services staff at Advocates. And Keith offered me a job as a peer specialist. At the beginning, I struggled to understand what a peer specialist was. The certified peer specialist training I turned down. I didn't really understand it. Evelyn told me over and over again, it's really important, you're going to enjoy this job, it's a perfect fit for you. So finally I said fine, and I went to the CPS training, and I got it. It was a great fit for me. It fit my philosophy. I liked how they trained people to work with each other. I finished the training and advocates offered me a job. So I got the job and started working with advocates. And, I realized that my lived experience, with addiction, I could understand other people's experiences. It gave me a bond with them and that I could help them because of that. That felt really good. I can succeed in my own recovery, for sure. I don't always feel happy. I do struggle. I struggle with how I deal with stress. I work to develop my coping skills. It's not easy. There's no cure. There's no magic pill. The key to my recovery is really strength. I've got this fire inside. I'm a fighter, and I'm not going to give up. So I just keep going. I will continue to fight. So like I said at the beginning, this month is the hardest month of the year for me. I think a lot about my mother. And this year again, it's October, and I'm not going to give up. I'll get through it. So that's my recovery story.